To the Board of Health meeting of April 28th, 2025. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet. If anyone else is recording this meeting, please notify the chairman. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023, signing of the Acts of 2023 extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until June 30th, 2027, this meeting of the Chatham Board of Health is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, and the conference ID is 203-284-231#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, Channel 8 and 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. I'll turn the meeting over to our chairman, Dr. Noble Hanson.
Thank you. It shall be the policy of this board to conduct its meetings under the open meetings law so as to encourage public participation whenever time permits and as part of agenda item discussions. Okay, so we have three things on the agenda today, but first let's establish a quorum, and when I call your name, please say present. John Beckley.
Present.
Ron Broman.
Yeah.
Dick Edwards.
Present.
Ron Weiser.
Present.
And Noble Hanson, I'm present, and we have one alternate, Joanna Kale.
Present.
Okay. First on the agenda is a definitive subdivision plan review for Eastwood Company Business Trust, 155, 157 Bridge Street, Clark Engineering.
Good afternoon, David Clark, Clark Engineering. On behalf of Eastwood Companies, Susan Ledoux is from Eastwood Companies.
Can you just speak up a little bit more there?
David Clark, Clark Engineering, on behalf of Eastwood Companies. Susan Ledoux is also here remotely.
Hello.
Hello.
So the board saw this last fall. It's a two-lot subdivision on Bridge Street. All the lots conform to the zoning, except for the one lot that's considered a panhandle lot, which requires planning board approval under the subdivision control law. Both lots have adequate soils for a Title V system, in that there are already plans on file for the two previous houses that used to be on the property. So there are suitable soils. Town water's available on Bridge Street, and both lots would be served. Under the subdivision control law, the Board of Health's review is to make a determination which lot, if any, is unsuitable for the on-site disposal of sanitary sewage. As I stated, there are plans on file for Title V systems that are in full compliance with the regulation. That's it? Yes.
Can I ask, is the plan for this subdivision to have a single shared?
No. It'd be separate systems.
Separate, so that, yeah, because what it says here, it says, if it's, only if it's three or more, you have to have a shared, I mean, this is a little confusing, this.
Oh, on your nitrogen regulations? Yeah,
the
yeah, three or more
nitrogen
lots.
regulation, Yeah.
Have there been any changes between the preliminary subdivision plan and the definitive subdivision plan in terms of lot lines and offsets? And
No, no. We just provided additional details as required by the planning board.
Right.
David, did they demo the house? Was there a house on there?
There were two houses on the
And they
property. Yeah, they demoed them 3 years ago, 4 years ago now.
Oh, okay. And, yeah, so both lots will have to meet the nitrogen loading regs, but they don't need a shared system because there's only two lots. So they're, I guess, 3 bedrooms on each lot. Or,
That's the zoning buildable up.
Yeah, I don't know what the upland is for us.
Yeah, we would be able to include the portions of the floodplain under the nitrogen regulations, so possibly 4 bedrooms for each lot.
Okay, yep.
Other questions or comments from the board? Any comments from the public or online?
I don't see any, no.
Right, and then Judy has reviewed things and has recommended that we grant approval. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move that we approve this variance or this subdivision request.
And Ron, second? Okay, and then we can go ahead and take a voice vote. Say aye if you approve. John Beckley,
Aye.
Ron Broman,
Approve.
Dick Edwards,
Approve.
Ron Weiser,
Approved.
Noel Hanson approves. Okay, so that definitive subdivision plan is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now this will come back to us when the houses are being developed.
Only if it needs a
We'll approve
variance.
Only if it needs a variance.
Right.
All right. Can you explain, in section 2 of these regulations, the last line says, each parcel affected by this section will be allowed to have 1 additional bedroom upon approval of the Board of Health. What's that all about? Division of land involving existing dwellings resulting
Yeah,
from parcel.
that's interesting because that was based on our regulation, our nitrogen loading regulation. We may need to look at that. Well,
When they say each
it would
parcel
only be,
shall have
if
an
it's a
on-site.
40,000 square foot of
No, I know, but
upland.
just in general,
Yeah,
this regulation. It says, each parcel shall install an all-site subsurface sewage disposal system that provides nitrogen removal technology. Does that mean an IA system, or is that
Yes.
just a standard?
yeah.
Right. So it's saying that any new subdivision that has existing homes on it needs to add an IA system and will automatically be allowed an additional bedroom.
If it doesn't meet the existing regulations, so say there was a house on one of these lots that was, the lot they're creating is 30,000 square feet. And they'd had a 4-bedroom house, we would make them put an IA system in because it's non-compliant. And we were allowing them to put an additional bedroom, which is what we used to do.
So we need to
Yeah, we probably
redo
should
this
relook at that.
regulation to state that it has to meet the current
Yeah.
bedroom requirements of.
Right, and we have to look at, we're gonna talk about bedroom definition, and those definitions are in our nitrogen loading reg, so I can make the changes at the same time if we make changes in the regulation as far as bedroom definition, so we can relook at that. That's a good catch, because I didn't catch that.
Right, but we would never allow more than 1 bedroom than what you're allowed by right with IA technology. We would never go above that for any reason.
Right, I mean, we are allowing 1 more with IA now.
With IA,
If it's
right.
only, if they're just meeting it now, we would allow 1 more. But if say it was a 30,000 square foot lot and it already had 5 bedrooms on it, we wouldn't allow
Right.
that.
Although,
I mean-
reading this, it suggests that we would.
Yeah, and I think at the time, the thought was because we're taking a dwelling that's not changing, we're just changing their property lines, that we would allow them to do that by putting in the IA.
Now, I was at the meeting on whenever it was, last Friday or Thursday with Andrew Gottlieb about the water issues in Chatham. And he was talking about IA systems. And he made a point that IA systems in homes that are seasonal do not necessarily work. Because if the home is not occupied for 3 or 4 months, the bacteria in that IA system is wiped out, and it takes 3 months for the average IA system to constitute enough bacteria for that system to work. And then I told him about our experience with the Board of Health testing our systems. And he said, yes, that's exactly true. He says he's looked at hundreds and hundreds of systems on Cape Cod, and a high proportion of them do not function at the 19 milligrams of nitrogen standard that they're supposed to. And many of those are because of seasonal occupancy. He also said there are expensive systems and cheap systems, and the expensive ones tend to work, and the cheap ones, like the fast system, often fail. And so he is very anti-IA technology. He's certainly anti-adding additional bedrooms with the excuse that IA technology solves the problem. And at the minimal, he would be in favor of only allowing the IA systems that are more advanced in their technology and work
Performance
better.
standards.
But he doesn't like IA systems at all in homes that are seasonal.
So this would definitely be a topic we can get into more, but I do want to say that George Hoyfelder, who is the guru for innovative alternative systems on Cape Cod, he's the founder of the IA Testing Center. He always said that, yes, they don't work as well on seasonal homes, but you also have to factor in the fact that if a house is not occupied for 3 or 4 months, or even 6 months a year, then you automatically have a 50% reduction in your nitrogen. So they do take a while to start back up in the spring. They need to be fed in order for them to work.
And on the third hand, many of these systems are now seasonal rentals that are occupying far more people than ever occupied them when they were a single family.
And those are all topics
seasonal
we
homes.
talked about.
So like the house next to me currently has 8 people living in it in April.
So is there a workaround? Is there a way to bring in a maintenance person in January and February and seed the system with a live? I mean, are there any?
I mean, it depends on the type of the system. If it's something that has to have a blower on, the system has to actually be working. It wouldn't do really any good probably to seed it if it's not.
I'm just wondering out loud. Is
Yeah,
there a
yeah.
fix?
I mean,
Is
I
there
think
a
it would depend
workaround?
on the system, so.
I think that this is a discussion that we didn't complete, but we wanted to look at the list of IA systems.
Yep.
Which ones work
By
and which
make.
ones don't work.
Yeah, by-
Fast is the least expensive, so it tends to be used. Are there ones more expensive that work better? Could we have a shorter list than the state list? And then learn more about the IA technology
Or-
itself. But that's a discussion for us, so with this not
Or
really on
could
the
we-
agenda, so we have to be a little careful.
Could we precondition the approval of a, what's the system you just said?
Fast?
A fast system, to couple that with an owner's commitment for year-round residency? In other words, could you,
Put a condition that it's not used for short-term rentals. I think we've actually talked about that.
and also that this house is gonna be occupied year-round. So then allow me to put a fast system in.
But the whole discussion of IA systems, there's a state list.
Yep.
Could we have a smaller list?
Yeah.
Of systems that are, work better?
Under certain conditions.
Yeah.
I think
And,
that's reasonable.
We did have someone come in, but they had that one study, which isn't the whole picture. Who is Mr. Gottlieb?
He's
He's the director of the APCC, the Association for the Preservation of Cape Cod.
Before that, he was.
They're a lobbying
very
group. They
involved
also
in the
do-
water systems on Cape Cod.
So he's sort of a
and
conservation activist type.
He's very
He's
knowledgeable.
been an environmentalist on Cape Cod for
Right.
30 years, 40
Okay.
years, probably.
knows.
That would be, yeah, so when we have a big discussion, we could, that would be part of it.
I think this would be an interesting policy discussion to have, because there may be choices and conditions under which we could allow A but not B.
Problem with that is,
We probably have to discuss this on an agenda
if
item.
the house is
but-
sold,
Just one quick comment.
that would have to apply to the buyers.
I think we ought to do this sooner than later, because we dance around this every
Yes.
meeting. And we probably chew up 15 to 20 minutes, most every meeting, dancing around the same thing. I think if we get an expert in here.
Right.
And pepper him with the questions, I
Or-
think
or a
we can
couple,
make a
yeah.
legitimate decision.
That's right, and it all gets into when you test it, what the test means. The test is a concentration. It's not a total volume either. So the whole thing is, okay,
I
so,
can, for another agenda, I'll get somebody from the county to come back. There's new people on staff, they're doing best available technology reviews. There's
and
a lot of,
list of the system, the state systems, which ones work better. Can we
I
actually
mean,
have a
it's
smaller
all,
list?
it's all being looked at, the data.
That was one of the things, it's
So it's
evolving.
kind of a work in progress, but I definitely will, we'll put it on an agenda for
Judy-
probably June, maybe.
But one of the things that we should know before that night is what a retrospective analysis of the last X number of years in Chatham identifies as the distribution of systems. In other words, during that 10 years, there've been 86 installations in Chatham, and here's the distribution. Of those 86, 60 have been this type, 20 have been that.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of give us
Skip
a,
that slide. He had a slide, the woman had a slide.
Yeah,
That
that's,
showed all that data
okay,
yeah,
the Cape.
for Chatham.
no, for Chatham.
Chatham.
Okay, that,
They
so that exists
studied about
already.
80 systems in Chatham.
Okay,
They said which ones
more
were
than that.
passed, which ones were this, which
well,
ones were
okay,
that.
so data exists already.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's a
so
lot of
it's-
data,
It's a
yeah.
major discussion. We have to put it on as an agenda item and get a whole
Good
thing
point.
set up, because
Yes.
it wasn't on the agenda for today, although it's an important topic.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so now we have, our second thing on the agenda is a follow-up discussion, revisions to bedroom definition. And I would say this is a discussion. We don't have a time frame of when this has to be done. It would require, we're talking about a change in our nitrogen loading regulations, which would require a hearing and all that. So, but, we all know the problem. We look at plans of architectural plans, and we talk about whether this is a bedroom or that's a bedroom, and we have rules that are sometimes hard to interpret. So Judy has put together some suggested changes to our Board of Health rules about bedrooms. And did you want to say something about that, Judy?
Well, the last meeting, we briefly looked at this, and then I also looked at the Hingham, what their policy was, which isn't all that different than ours. They just had a lot of narrative around it. So what I did was, basically, we just handed out a copy with red, so that you could see where the changes were.
Yep.
Down in where it says living rooms, dining rooms, like the second paragraph, living rooms, dining rooms, kitchens, halls, bathrooms, unfinished cellars, and or I guess like basements, I don't know, cellars, basements. I put an asterisk, and if you flip it over, the asterisk means that the definition of an unfinished means no drywall, finished flooring, rough plumbing, or electrical. And the reason why I think that's important is what we're finding is that people are rough finishing rooms, but they're putting the electrical and the plumbing in, and then, or they're putting the drywall in and a flooring and just roughing everything else, and then they don't need to get any permits to finish the room off after that. So we come back, we catch them most of the time when we do real estate inspection reports, but we come back and it's a bedroom, so.
Right.
We want a clear definition of unfinished. So I added that, and then, down at the bottom of the first page, rooms over freestanding garages or outbuildings, I added that, that have heat and a bathroom, full or half. That's something we can discuss, but, sometimes people do want a workshop with just a toilet and a sink. Then you find a lot of people are putting a shower in too. So I added that. And then moving down to the section that describes lofts. Lofts or bonus rooms with one wall open to below or open stairways shall not be considered bedrooms. However, any room with a full bathroom adjacent will be considered a bedroom if the Board of Health considers the room to have sufficient privacy. So this one we can talk about. I'm sure you have
This is new?
the red.
Well, it's not red here, but.
You've got two versions,
She
there's
passed
another
out a new
version.
one
I passed you one that says
that just
red.
came in, just dropped on the desk this, as we
Well,
sat
anyway,
down.
the sentence,
language-
any room with a full bath adjacent, that's sort of an out for the Board of Health. If we consider that there is substantial privacy.
Yeah.
Even if it's got a 4-foot cased opening.
Right.
If it's far enough away from the rest of the house, we could just call that a bedroom, if it's got a full bath.
Yeah.
Because this is what we're getting into, all of these offices and studies and libraries that have a full bath with a shower off of that room, even though there are 3 other full baths in the house. It's pretty obvious why those full baths are being built. And once it's approved, what's to keep anybody from putting a door, on that 4-foot cased opening? Nothing. And then they've got another bedroom. So that, if we see some, because I think we saw one not that long ago that was just pretty obvious.
Yeah.
A room said to be a loft or a library or something, and it had a full
Full
bath,
bathroom,
and there were
right.
3 other full baths in the house.
Yeah.
But we have other definitions of what makes a bedroom.
Well,
You know,
and
and
it sounds
you
like
don't-
we
you don't
can
have to have
just
the
make it
bathroom.
up as we go along. If in our sense, that room has enough privacy to be a bedroom, we can call it, even if it doesn't meet the strict
Right.
definition of privacy in these.
And that's what that was meant to do.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, what you're talking about, though, is kind of a subjective idea of the Board of Health, whether there is sufficient privacy, and then how do you define sufficient privacy? But this phrase that Judy has put in, sufficient privacy, I mean, that opens the door to us making a judgment, which will be hard to, there's precedent and being consistent and all that, and then the architects have to know what to do.
Well,
Ron?
I like the Hingham one beautifully. I thought it was amazing. And one of the things I liked best about it was this notion of a 2-to-1 rule for total rooms and bedrooms. And it just seems to me, if we did something like that, that would eliminate, to the point about a library, a loft, a study, a sewing room, and on and on.
It can, yeah.
But
Now
I-
that, we already
but
have
that's-
used that.
But that's not.
That's been
not
in the, that comes from the state.
It's not in the
regulations.
regulation, but we do have it in our policy.
But that's not.
We don't always have it, we don't always think about it, but it is there, and it's something that can limit
And
these
it's not,
big
and it's
houses.
not subjective either.
It is to the point that people will argue what's a room. So if you have a front-to-back room, that's a living room in the front and a dining room in the back, and there's like a 2-foot piece that comes
And
in
I
from the
thought-
walls, I would call that 2 rooms. People would say, oh, no, that's
I
one
would
room.
too, and I thought in the Hingham document, they were very clear about casings and other things that would separate.
They
very large
specifically
rooms.
address the problem of the great room, and
Exactly.
it says if there's some kind of an outcropping, a cabinet, a railing.
Wall dividing wall, half-wall pillars, built-in
Something
cabinetry.
that makes it visually or moving wise a separate room, you can call it a separate room. Oftentimes, the kitchen will have something where you can call it a separate room, so that's 2 rooms, and that goes towards the overall count.
I agree. I think that we need to have that total number of room in the regulation, but we only want to use it because it can work both ways. Sometimes the total number of rooms divided by 2 is going to be less than what we think it is.
Well, can't we word it, can't we do this? Can't we word it in a way that applies that rule routinely, in addition to the other way of calculating bedrooms? And then say, the one that,
The highest number.
the highest number, in other words, lock it in that way.
And that's kind of what I've been doing. I had an architect come to me last week or the week before, and he wanted to know, he had a 3-bedroom house, and every bedroom he wanted a separate office. So they had to walk through the bedroom to get to the office, every single one of these. And when I counted all the rooms, it was like a, 10-bedroom. It was like 5 bedrooms, I think. It was 10, there were 10 rooms in the house. So I made him change it. I said, you can't, you gotta get rid of one of these offices or something. So, because he had too many rooms in the house, and it was gonna be more than the 3 bedrooms that they were allowed. So, when you took the total number of rooms, divided, it's only 9 or more in Title V, I think it says.
8 or more.
Oh, 8, exceeds 8, not including bathrooms always, so.
But Ron's suggestion is good in terms of having it be part of the standard calculation, and it is objective.
I mean, it just seems to me, since we've been doing this, we've hit a lot of these subjective things, and we've never denied anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, which says to me, I just don't think there's enough hard and fast
Reasons.
rules in it. And I do think if there was a hard and fast rule, an objective criteria, it probably would make it a lot easier for architects as well, because they wouldn't have to work around on the edges.
Yeah,
They
if we
would
can
know
put the
this
language
is-
together, but the architects definitely are designing to our rules.
There you
I
go.
don't begrudge them that
So
they're doing their
the
job.
challenge is to write our regulations in a manner with the clarity that everybody understands.
But the Hingham, I kind of, that intrigued me, because there were a bunch of things there. They use the term a degree of privacy. And we've always talked about you have to have privacy.
Plus,
They're talking about a degree of privacy. So we see these rooms upstairs, and there's a staircase coming up, and there's a little rail, and the staircase goes into the bedroom, and we say, well, there's no privacy. But it has a degree of privacy, so is there some way to put language in there? Judy has done to a certain extent, and she's used this term sufficient privacy, but then we're left with kind of interpreting, which is difficult. But I think that's something that I saw in the Hingham thing. The other thing the Hingham thing addresses are lofts.
Yeah.
We see a lot of lofts. There's a rail, there's one stairway going up, there's a loft. And it says a loft addressed by a stairwell less than 5 feet. They're just attempting to create some privacy. Is a separate room regardless of the openness to the room before. So would we call a loft a room when we do a total count?
Oh, of course.
Yes,
Call it a
even though
room,
it's
but we
open.
might not
But
necessarily,
we wouldn't call it a
question-
bedroom.
if it's open to below, I don't.
Right.
If it's an open rail, we wouldn't call it a bedroom, even though, like in the Caribbean, hundreds of condominiums have their bedroom on a loft.
Right, but we would call it a room. But what about the upstairs bedroom that has the one staircase going up, and there's a little rail, and the staircase goes into the room, and it's all by itself, like a bedroom over a garage?
To me, that would be sufficient privacy.
Yeah,
I thought we did that.
But we-
About a month ago or 2 months ago, there was a room over a garage, had its own bath, and it had a staircase going up with an open rail. And we said that room is segregated enough from the house
from
that
location.
it provides privacy, and therefore they removed the bathroom. We made them remove the
Remove the
bathroom.
full bath.
they went from a full to a half bath. They offered that as a way
Right.
out.
That's right.
Yeah,
Again, if we went with this ratio of total rooms to bedrooms, then you catch all the lofts, you catch all
yeah,
of.
but it doesn't work in every case, because there may be a house that's mainly all bedrooms. The new houses have all these extra rooms, and so that comes into effect. But if you have a house that's, all bedrooms, then it doesn't so much, but it can at times.
Yeah, no,
You could have a
so I
great
guess my
room.
question to the board is, right now, this bedroom definition is part of 2 regulations, the nitrogen loading regulation and the subsurface sewage regs. So, because both of those regs, obviously you need to know the bedroom number. So, I'm gonna have to change it or take it out and do something more like this, which is a policy. I think this holds more weight if it's a regulation. Do you see what I'm saying?
No, say that again?
Right now, the definition is in 2 regulations, the nitrogen loading reg and the subsurface sewage disposal regs, which is our local Title V. It's a little-
So you mean the state Title V, state rules, and
Our-
our rules?
Our rules.
Two different sets of rules.
Our rules
Right.
for subsurface sewage disposal and our rules for nitrogen loading. Both have this definition of a bedroom in it, our definition. So I can either change this, which is probably the easiest way,
Which is what, when you say this?
changed our definition in our regulations. We'd have to have hearings for
Yes.
both, or we could probably have, we'd have to have hearings for both, you know, to change the regs, and then probably no one would come to them, but, and then we would vote, and then we would change the regulations. The other option would be to delete them from our current regulations and do, this is a guideline, this is not a regulation, this is kind of a,
Talking about the town of Hingham?
to Hingham's,
Right.
yeah, I'm waving things around here. Hingham's is a policy, a guideline, which is why it's so descriptive. Or we could enact something like this as a regulation as well.
Adopt it as a regulation.
Yeah, I thought that
Formalize.
our rules, the bedroom rules came under our nitrogen loading regulation.
It does.
And then you're saying it comes under some other
It's
regulation
in
as well?
both of them. It's in both of them.
What's the other one?
The subsurface sewage disposal.
Local title.
Subsurface, I don't think
It's
I've
our
ever seen that
Chatham
regulation.
Title V. I'm sure
Oh,
you
Chatham
have.
Title V.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's our local.
I'm confused by all this, actually.
You guys all
You
should,
guys both, we voted these changes a year ago.
yeah.
Right, but I don't, it's the idea there's two separate sets of regulations. We were dealing with the Chatham nitrogen loading regulation. That's the only one I
And the other
remember.
one too. We did both of them.
Yeah, we have.
We did. Yeah.
Let me just
Okay,
say, if
we
we
would
go
do
to
it
the room count, it's gotta be in addition to what we already have.
Of course.
Because an architect
Yeah.
could design a house with a great room, a big kitchen, and 4 bedrooms. You could build that on a 1/4 acre lot, because it's only 6 rooms, that would say 3 bedrooms.
But see, I think the Hingham policy deals with that, because they talk about a great room and how it is actually subdivided by casings and.
Well, it wouldn't have to be subdivided. You could just have one big room,
Well,
have dining area.
But they always are.
Well, but an architect who wanted to get around this rule would make it just
No,
one room.
But then they're making a ballroom, and I don't think you
Well,
want, I don't
well-
think you want to have that where the kitchen, the dining room, and the family.
Well, it would still,
Right, but
it would be 6 rooms.
the definition of a room gets to that total room count thing. And then that's separate than the definition
Is
of a
that in
bedroom,
this?
which we're talking about
Yeah,
separately.
it is.
Even if it was 2 rooms, you'd have a 2-room great room, a kitchen, and 4 bedrooms. That's 7, divided by 2 is 3.5, that would be 3 bedrooms. And you could build it on a 1/4 acre.
Right, well,
You've got to have an out. You can't just count rooms, because they will get around that.
I really disagree with that, I really do. And I think you're talking about an unbelievable exception, somebody
No,
who would
we've
design
had
a
those
ballroom.
What's
with
that?
four
No, this
bedrooms.
is 2 rooms. It could be a living
Again,
room,
if
a
you
dining room,
read
a
this
kitchen,
regulation,
a living room, dining room, kitchen, and 4 bedrooms. That's 7 rooms, that's 3 bedrooms.
Again, if you read this regulation, I think that they really dealt with that very well,
How did they deal with that?
because nobody builds a ballroom.
No, I'm not saying a ballroom. A separate living room, a separate dining room.
Exactly.
A kitchen, and 4 bedrooms.
And they-
That's 7 rooms.
And in that kind of a room, they typically have some sort of a half wall.
no,
They'll
they're
have,
separate
they'll have an
rooms.
island that separates the kitchen from the living room.
I'm talking about totally separate rooms. A dining room, a living room, a
Yeah.
kitchen, and 4 bedrooms.
I think Ron
That's
is talking
7
about
rooms,
how you.
3 bedrooms.
Ron's talking about how you deal with a great room when you count rooms.
No, but you don't have to make it a great room. It can be 2, it can
Oh,
be
I
a
know it
living
doesn't
room
have to
and a
be.
dining room, and a kitchen, and 4 bedrooms. That's 7 rooms.
Right.
By the numbers, it's 3
But
bedrooms.
in the 5 months that we've been going back and forth with this, have you ever seen an architect's plan that looks like that? I haven't.
Well, I just
Not
did.
in a new house.
so. I mean, I just saw a house that
That had 5 rooms?
it had 3 bedrooms and 3 offices, plus a kitchen and a dining room and a living room, so.
But the great room, we always say it's one room, if it's one big open room. But then the Hingham, if you have a counter that comes out, or, a big sitting counter that comes out,
Right.
that would make the kitchen, by their rules,
You have an island. You have
a
an
separate
island
room, so that
separates-
great room counts as 2 rooms, that goes to the total count. But what Dick's point is that the total number of rooms in the house is an important one to keep in mind. I think sometimes we forget about that. There's other things that's in this Hingham thing. One is that if a basement room is more than 50% above grade, it is a room, and presumably you could have a bedroom. We see some basements that have walkouts and windows, and, you know, that's the basement. We just sort of let it go, I think.
No, if it's got a egress and it's got windows that you can climb through, if you can we've considered those bedrooms.
Okay.
We've never said that no
They've had
room in the
full
basement can be a
bathrooms in them.
bedroom.
We've looked at them, yeah.
But what,
Do you, I don't,
what do
I
we
don't
do
see
about the room
anything-
upstairs that has a staircase going up that's open into the room with a banister? And we look at that and say, it's not private because the staircase, the stairwell opens into the room. So we say, well, that's not a bedroom, I think was what we said.
this, I don't see anything in here where it says you divide the total number of room by two.
In which?
In the Hingham.
Uh,
Just describing what they consider a room.
It's, no, it's the end it's at the end of the big purpose paragraph at the beginning.
A proportion 2-to-1 relationship between the total number of rooms and how many rooms are considered bedrooms.
The other aspect that I think has come up, I'm just throwing these things out, because I think it's complicated, and we're not gonna solve it today, but
this page, that's why.
Oh, yeah, I'm
what
missing
do
a
you do?
page.
And about
It's right there.
2 or 3 meetings ago, we had such a very large bedroom that went front to back. It had a, you know, like an 8 or 10 foot
okay, I see the page.
corridor between the two, and it had a king-size double bed on each side.
Right.
But by our rules, that is one bedroom. I've seen it, but I couldn't go back and dig it up, but there is a town that puts a size limit, a bedroom above a certain square foot. That's presumed to be 2 bedrooms. Now, I don't know what, I forget, I don't remember the town, but it seems, because we looked at that plan and said, well, this is 2 bedrooms, but by our rules, we have to call it 1. So we all felt like we were, you know, the architect had done a good job for their customer.
Yeah, no, it's
But I think, but
Clever.
that's something to
missed that
research, I
page.
think, and see if we can find that the towns have done that as a precedent. Because that, I think that makes sense, I mean,
Yeah.
to me. Because
Now,
we
one
looked at
room
it,
was
we
like,
all
what,
looked at it and
30
said, well,
feet
wow.
long or 40 feet long? And
It was
had a-
it was 37
And they
feet by,
even showed a bed,
20.
a bed on either end.
Yeah.
I mean, hello, I mean, that couldn't have been telegraphed better.
It's still a bedroom, it's still one bedroom, no matter how many beds it has.
so, but for Judy, if she's gonna make a revised thing, you know,
I don't,
getting at this,
Ours says
a degree of privacy or sufficient privacy, I mean, to get some language that helps us sort that out so we can be consistent.
All we need it to be is bulletproof.
yeah, I mean, that's why we keep revising this, because we keep,
For the purpose of argument,
Yes,
and I'm not saying we're gonna do this, but let's
Right.
just say you've got regulation in 2 different pots right now, which we're trying to wordsmith to make it work. If you eliminated that,
what 2 pots are you referring to when you say that now?
2 regulations, the nitrogen loading reg and the subsurface sewer.
yeah.
Not, and the state regs are
Let's just
separate.
say, let's just say you eliminated those and replaced them with what's in the Hingham document with some wordsmithing. Would that work?
Well, it
I
sounds
think
like,
it would.
yeah,
I think it
consolidating
would.
those 2 regulations.
And we would need to have hearings if.
Well,
that
it
was
You'd
a-
wanna formalize it, you wouldn't wanna have it be a guideline. You'd have to.
That's
you'd
what I'm
have to
saying, that's why I'm saying
encode it
replacing,
somehow.
replacing what's in there right now, just with this
Construction.
wordsmithed a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can't get rid of that.
No, we're not getting rid of
I
that.
mean, well, they
Just getting
use
rid
the
of
phrase a
definition.
degree of privacy,
Oh.
which gives us tremendous latitude in determining what a bedroom is, by just saying a degree of privacy.
When I read this document, I felt like this is a group of people who have had the same problems
they've been
that we've
dealing
had
with it. Oh, totally,
for the
yeah.
last
And
5 months, and they came up with a pretty good solution.
And they explained the rationale for what they're doing.
Exactly.
Number of people in the use.
Exactly.
I would assume that whatever we do, because it's a regulation, we're gonna have to go through a public hearing and to make sure it's all nailed down. I would
Solves the
assume,
problem.
there's no way around it.
so-
So, but here's, what guidance can we give Judy setting up the next set of things to look at or think about.
So I think if, I don't have I like that idea, because
Which idea?
taking it out of the other two regulations and then making a set-aside regulation.
For,
That's
bedrooms?
referenced in the other two.
Yeah,
Well,
See
that's
here
what-
for guidance.
That's what Hingham has done, I think.
Yeah. well,
Guideline
this
for
is a
determining
guideline.
bedrooms.
I don't know if this
But
is,
you could call it a regulation.
it's set up almost like a regulation, but,
Right, I think, I would assume that that's what,
Yeah.
but they did it as a separate document with a justification for why we're being so picky with all these things and what we're trying to accomplish, which is pretty, we all agree that it's the total human flow that's going in there and out.
I think it would make it easier for architects to have something like this, to be honest with you.
Well, you can guess that they're not gonna like the,
But they don't like,
sufficient privacy as we see it case by case. But,
yeah.
We better be,
Well, what this document doesn't say is.
which document?
The Hingham document is if by the definition of a bedroom here, privacy and 50% floor, these criteria, if this disagrees with the 2-to-1 room count, what do?
Right.
If the 2-to-1 room count says there are
Take
3
the eyes off.
bedrooms, and by
2-to-1
their
room count.
definition, there are 5 bedrooms,
The 2-to-1 room count takes priority. That
And the 2-to-1
assumes bedroom number, no matter what else is in there.
Room count only comes into play if you have more than 9 rooms.
8
more than 8
rooms.
rooms.
Well, theirs says 9. I
Oh.
think Title V says 9. I gotta recheck that, because I think ours says 8, and I think that's a
It's
mistake.
8 is what yeah.
I think that's a mistake. So, yeah. I think we
All
need
right,
to-
so by that definition then, if an architect did design a house with a living room, a separate dining room, a separate kitchen, and 4 bedrooms, that would only be 3 bedrooms.
No, you can't use that, because it has to have a total of 9 rooms. Then, so in that case, you
But-
have to count rooms. It's a total, it's a resident,
No, the bedroom count by total rooms.
for a dwelling that has
it's-
9 total rooms or more, about half of the rooms would be considered bedrooms, regardless of their physical attributes. And the other rooms, a mix of living rooms, kitchens, dining rooms, family rooms, or office rooms. So an 11-room dwelling, half then round down, you'd have a 5-bedroom house. So
it's a methodology.
even if there was only 3 bedrooms per our definition.
Okay.
But that can work against you the other way, too.
And this defines what a room is.
How does it work against us again? 'Cause
Well, if there's more than 11 rooms and we count 4 of them as bedrooms, say there's 11 rooms and in our minds, 4 of them are defined as bedrooms, but they're saying that's
Okay.
only,
yeah.
they're saying if there's
Well,
11 rooms,
but that count
that's 5
doesn't,
bedrooms.
that count doesn't give you the bedrooms. That count means you have presumed 5 bedrooms, and it's not allowed on your lot because you don't have a septic system for it.
But if they had, right, if they
That- I
had
think that's
11
how it
rooms
works.
and we count 4 bedrooms and they're saying, oh, but we can have 5 because we have a total of 10 rooms, we don't want that. We're saying,
No,
no,
but that
we're
wouldn't-
restricted to
it's-
4.
Right, but I don't think, it doesn't allow them extra rooms because it
No,
still
I-
has to
I
conform to
mean,
the septic
yeah.
system.
Right.
Yeah, we wouldn't want them to have 5.
It's,
so we'd
it's
have to have
presumed
them-
5, so it presumes, we presume this plan has more bedrooms than your septic system allows.
Right.
So you can't.
They can't do it.
Can't
right.
do it.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting myself confused.
it's easy to do with this.
Yeah, I know, but I,
Well,
yeah,
okay.
Okay, so, I
I
think
will take
combining the
this-
plans,
and revise it.
I think,
Define what a room
I
is.
think it's worth reading the Hingham plan again and seeing how they have put things together.
I didn't get a copy of that.
It was,
the
it was in the
last-
packet.
Not this time, it was the last time.
Oh, you did, I'm sorry,
no,
I
it-
didn't hand it out.
In my, it was
You didn't
attached to
hand it
my,
That's the old one? Is that-
You sent it out as an email a week or 2 ago.
but it came,
Well, make sure you all get
This
it.
was in my packet that I
I'll make
picked
sure
up.
you all get it.
it was stapled to my bedroom definition that was in the packet, that without the red stuff. It was stapled to that. Did I just get that?
No, you should have got that.
Everyone should have gotten it. So look on the second page of your bedroom definition without the red print on it. look at the bedroom definition without the red print that was in your packet.
Okay, got
The
it.
second page should be
Yes.
the Hingham thing.
Got it,
You might
all
be
right.
missing a page, now that I'm thinking
It
about
might
it.
be missing a page, because mine
I'll
was missing.
resend it.
That's why I was getting confused.
But I would say,
Yes.
read it, because it's obviously a town like our town, they are.
This allows
And they have dealt with this and
one
thought
room.
about it a lot.
They just don't have a,
Okay.
they don't build a
And,
bump.
and what I'll do is I'll take it and I'll try and edit it for our purposes.
I think you're.
And the other thing, is there a town in Massachusetts that uses square footage and presumes it two bedrooms?
I
Read that
saw
somewhere.
that
Maybe I dreamt
somewhere
it, but I
too.
think, but I have to, because I think that's, it could be some large,
It doesn't happen very often, but yeah,
but that
I'll
one
have
house,
to,
it was clearly, it was designed that way to me.
all right, so I'm gonna,
Okay, so
One rule only comes.
in terms of guidance for Judy to take the next step so we can have another discussion and make some progress. And we don't have a time schedule here because it's going to require a public hearing and we can do it whenever. But I think if we do it, we should try to make real meaningful substantive change and not have to come back right away. That's difficult and make it mean something and help us and help everybody.
Solve the problem.
The architects are just doing their job, so they'll comply with whatever we do, I believe.
All right, so there's two documents then. So are we all looking at this three-page document?
Yes.
It's Hingham, that's what you sent out?
Yes.
Yep.
Because that was in the email.
yeah,
That was in the email.
I had, yeah,
Well, somehow it's attached.
but I think what's attached is only,
It might only be 2 pages.
What we've got here is only two.
Yeah.
Right, it's front and
Yeah, you're
back.
missing-
yeah, you're missing a page,
You're missing a page. I'll resend it.
which is important because the whole room account thing is missing.
Oh, okay. But all right, so we'll make sure everyone has, so how are you gonna you're gonna email it out, Diane? So the three-page Hingham thing, which is worth reading
You make a copy of it.
and seeing how they did it, because I think they have really thought about the same problem we're trying to think about. I don't think you necessarily go all the way, but there's a lot in there that's good. Ron,
Three pages?
3 pages,
3 pages.
yeah.
Diane, can you mail me a copy, because my printer's not working?
Mail it, yeah.
The three-page
Come in and pick
Hingham?
one up.
Come by and pick it up.
Or let me know,
So
right? I
this
can pick it up. too.
page
You're driving
wasn't
now.
I
included
am driving now.
in our packet today.
And Noble, can we also take the premise that we'll get rid of the two regulations that are,
Yes, that's
We're
what
not
I
getting,
write
yeah, we're not getting rid of the whole
And we'll
regulations, but those sections,
but we'll replace it with something that looks a lot like this.
right,
Okay.
yeah,
I like that.
okay.
Yeah, I don't even, can you email the other regulation that I don't even think about? There's nitrogen loading, but the other subsurface,
Yeah,
whatever.
I can
I'm
give
not
you
sure I
the
have that.
soft copy,
Okay, other comments or anything else that would? All right, so Judy will do some work, we'll consolidate, we'll come up with some more things. People will get a copy, will read the Hingham thing, and we'll go from there. But I think that's helpful. Okay. Are we done? No, we have one more thing.
Another one,
Transfer
another
station.
fun
All
topic.
right, now this is another, okay. Take a deep breath. The third on the agenda is a review discussion of revised transfer facility regulation and proposed refuse haulers registration form. So this has to do with, does all the waste coming to the transfer station, is it all in-town waste, basically Chatham waste? And it's been brought up as an issue because Brewster does not accept any commercial dumping in their transfer station. So the first question is, where's all Brewster's trash going? And then there's some tightening up, but there's three parts of it. One is the application form, which did not emphasize the fact that they can only dump Chatham waste. It didn't emphasize it. It might have been in there, but the first thing is to tighten up the application so that it's very clear, I think multiple times, that it's Chatham waste only. They attest to it, they sign it, they initial it, make it really firm. That Judy can do on her own once we decide what we want to do.
That's an annual document.
That's an annual document.
Signed one time
and
by
they
the
sign up
applicant to
in
the
December,
permit.
right?
Right.
December, so
Yes.
we have time. The second part is the fee schedule, and I put in there, I put together the fees. And that we can talk about, that needs to be changed. That change would have to go through the select board. That's a separate process. And then the third process that we would talk about is the, is the solid waste regulation, where the hauler is required to get out and go into the station and sign a document when they delivering construction debris and demolition debris. They have to sign in and attest to something. As far as we know, not so with regular garbage truck, commercial, residential waste. But we should add, I think, that they have to go into they have to stop, go inside, sign a form saying that they are stating that this waste that they're dumping, they picked up only in Chatham. It's not mixed. It's not from another town, just Chatham. Make them sign it.
Make 'em a-
That would be something that would be a part of our regulation, so we'd have to go through the hearing process and public hearing and all that. But it's a pretty simple change. And I could just talk about it now.
I mean, we might not have to change our regulations.
Might not. Gee, you
We
can find
might
out.
be, we might be able to just ask them to do it at the transfer station.
This is our Chatham Transfer Station and Solid Waste Regulations, which we wrote, that comes from the Board of Health. I didn't know it, but we rewrote it. And in it, it says, construction and demolition waste, all loads are to be logged in at the gatehouse before disposal. There's no such statement if it is just routine commercial and residential garbage that they're dumping, as far as we know. Ron?
Every one of those trucks goes on the scale and gets weighed.
Yes.
So they're right there.
Right.
They're right
30
next.
seconds.
There's really no reason why they're getting weighed that they can't attest that this is Chatham waste.
Right.
The bigger question is how on earth Chatham's fee turns out to be half of
Okay, so
anybody
that,
else's.
but let's just go by process. That process is a revision to our waste regulations with a hearing. But Judy can come up with language and where exactly to insert it in there and find out, and then give us something that we can look at that would address that problem.
What, the fees?
The staying that every single garbage truck with just regular commercial and residential waste must stop at the waste station and log in and attest to the fact that it's just Chatham waste.
Yeah.
They do the similar thing for demo and construction waste. They have to get out and log it in, but it's not written in there for the other stuff, as far as we know. Now, we need to talk to Mr. Faley, because but Judy can work on that. Right, Judy?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that's one
Yeah, I
thing.
got it, I mean.
And that'll be a process where we go through a public hearing and all that. Ron?
What about the fee? Who's going to determine?
Okay, the fees are separate, okay, that's,
Yeah, let's one at a time.
I'm going to number, okay, so that's, Judy's gonna handle that, that's gonna be the, a change to our regulation, we'll go through the public hearing process. Judy will come up with some more language, which we'll have to review. Okay, back to 2, which is the fee. Okay, and on there, on your thing, we have the fees, and if you looked at the fee structure,
Where did you get this?
I went through and I went to the different towns and dug it up.
The
This is,
one,
this is according to me. my
actually,
best
the
knowledge.
one in your memo is the one I did.
But there's no fees on it, is there?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah? I didn't even, huh? The memo?
yeah, the memo.
Oh, 90 per ton, 405
Yeah.
per ton. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
An extra one?
Elected
Yeah.
and board.
Oh, this one.
Yeah,
I
those are the ones I did, which are the same as yours.
Where's the fees?
90 per ton.
90 per ton.
$90.
Okay, I got it, yeah, okay.
I didn't put the
Right.
dollar sign in, sorry.
Okay, well, Judy, yeah, we did the same thing. So here's the key things. Harwich accepts waste from any town. They run it to make money. They're a regional center for trash. We don't want that.
Right.
We just don't want to create.
Commercial waste and
Commercial waste.
construction waste.
That's where the Brewster waste goes.
That's, this is like home and residential and commercial waste that they pick up in the garbage trucks.
Commercial, right, it's commercial.
Right. So Harwich is a regional center, $175 a ton.
And
Brewster
construction,
doesn't accept any. So in our regulations, Chatham is $90 a ton, is about half. So it's an incentive for somebody to dump
Try and
waste in
sneak it
Chatham.
in, try and sneak it in.
And when Mr. Faley was here, and what I recall is, he said that he doesn't really have the manpower, he doesn't really check, he can't check, so they don't really check. We're gonna tighten up the attestation and all that sort of thing, but the basic question we have is, why wouldn't the Chatham cost per ton be the same as the surrounding towns, so as not to create an incentive to dump other towns, especially Brewster's trash, in our town? You're not really harming the haulers, because that's the normal fee. It makes sense, I think.
Well, unless we want to increase the amount of waste delivered here because we make money.
Well, what's her name from the trash lady?
Paulette,
The trash lady.
Paulette from Chatham Recycles.
Colette? No, it was the one
Paulette.
that came in and talked here from the county.
Oh, Carrie, I'm sorry.
Gary,
She said that the $90 per ton did not cover the cost of offloading that trash to the regional dump center, which they take somewhere in southeastern Massachusetts.
lose money on it.
We lose money, right, at that fee. So that's my recollection of what she said. So, Judy, do you have something to, I'm talking too much here.
I mean, I agree that these fees need to go up, but it's not us, it's the select board that changes the fees. So what we need to do is recommend to the select board that the fees go up to match the surrounding towns, and they need to make some kind of, policy decision, whether if they want to take commercial waste from other towns,
I wouldn't
which I
even
don't think
mention
we
that.
want.
We don't want that. I wouldn't even
Okay.
mention that, because
Because
we
that
don't
seems
want
to,
that.
so we would make a recommendation that in order to keep the commercial haulers and the construction people from coming to Chatham as opposed to going to, because for construction debris, Harwich breaks that out, that's $205 a ton. So somebody building a house in Chatham, if they, they can dump here for 90, or if they're building a house across the line in Harwich, they can bring it to
Right.
to
So
Chatham
ba-
for
basically,
$90 a ton.
Our fees should be the same as Harwich, so there's no incentive for people to come here and dump, yes.
I think this is about the easiest decision in the world the selectmen have ever had to deal with.
Right.
I mean,
Well, you haven't dealt with them a
simply
lot
just-
then, perhaps.
You simply say, it's been brought to our attention that there's concern.
Right.
Yeah.
That other towns are
Right.
dumping trash at our transfer
we-
station. And the reason that they may be doing that is because our fees are about half of everybody else's. Therefore, we're gonna tighten our strictures, our affidavits, and we wanna double the price to dump
take away
garbage.
the incentive to come.
Take away the
Take away
incentive.
the incentive.
And we could add that, why wouldn't you do it? Because it doesn't even cover the offload price, and we would just be in line with all the other
I
towns.
would want to confirm that
I would
with
say that
Rob,
we
but
don't know they're dumping here. It's
that's why I said it's-
possible, because
people have brought that
Brewster doesn't
concern
take it,
to us.
and we're a lot cheaper, and,
right,
now,
exactly. So what I can do, and you're right, it's easy, we can send a memo or a letter to select board asking them to take the subject up at a future select board meeting. And that would probably require myself and Rob Faley to talk to the selectmen, the select board, and,
but it would be Select Board, Jill Goldsmith,
Yeah.
and Rob Faley.
right,
And then our rationale for it, and I would say if you can legally request that it go on as an agenda item for one of their meetings, because they may could just sit on it unless that we
No,
make that specific
we would
request.
frame it as an
Can
agenda
we-
request.
Can you make an agenda request by?
Well, from the Board of Health, I think we can, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see why not.
So we would make that request that it go on the agenda, and we would know when it is, and Judy would still show up and defend everything for us.
And of course, you could come, or, a representative from the board.
We need to have a proposed penalty for failure to comply.
That would be changing the regulation. Oh, that's
I
not the
mean,
regulation.
it could be
Yeah.
that three lack of compliance events would prevent that caller from using the Chatham transfer station.
Warning one, penalty,
Or
penalty,
it could be
revocation.
but there has to be some,
Well, I think, I think
Penalty,
we talked about it, in if you put a fee structure, or penalty structure specific, it gets complicated with other things going in. But what we could say, I think, is that, I had this thing, hauler noncompliance with the above will be reviewed by the Board of Health and may require hauler appearance before Board of Health, leaving the penalty up to our discretion.
We would revoke their license to haul
So
into
we put in
Chatham.
a clause that says failure to comply means we will deal with it, and you may be called to come before the board, and then the penalty is what we think is appropriate, without getting then a whole bunch of other things drawn into it.
What's the difference between commercial vehicles and licensed commercial?
Commercial vehicles would be like trucks from, my thought, construction people that are coming in with trucks and,
Yeah.
so
Licensed commercial?
Yeah.
those are like the rubbish haulers that are licensed through the Board of Health.
Oh, okay.
So we give them in the state law, you have to get a permit to haul rubbish across, is it state law? Anyways, locally, you're required to have a rubbish haulers. So anybody who drives through Chatham with rubbish from on a commercial
I think of
packer.
two separate things. It's commercial and residential garbage. They pick up in the garbage trucks. They
Right.
Go on the tipping floor and dump the whole thing. And then you have guys in big pickup trucks.
Construction
Full of
guys.
demo stuff because they're renovating a house. And that's sort of a separate category. I haven't really been thinking about that so much. I think it's the garbage from commercial and residential that gets dumped on the tipping room floor, that's all the junk in it, and they have to scrape it up. That's the one that we're trying to deal with.
I wouldn't doubt that the select board might look at having us lower tipping fee for the commercial people like Millie, and, because they don't like
Well, I'm sure
to.
I'm sure there will people who say we're picking on them and this and that, but to me, the bottom line is, we're not raising them above reasonable rates.
No.
We're just raising them up to
So
the level of
licensed
all the
commercial-
surrounding towns in Harwich. So they really,
I mean, they could,
and we're trying to remove the incentive, so I would just leave it at that, myself.
So Miley and Nickerson, the commercial garbage haulers, they don't operate solely in Chatham, right?
No.
We don't really know, but presumably not. Well, then one of them is Nauset Disposal. They're all over the Cape.
So they're paying, they know they're paying a very slight fee here
Right.
compared to what they're paying in Harwich and someplace.
How many tons do you think are in a garbage truck when they dump? 3 tons?
That's a great question. I don't know.
That's a question I haven't thought about in a long time.
But we're really
Ted's not-
encouraging them to bring garbage from whatever is in their truck, from wherever they pick it up.
Presumably-
And dropping it in Chatham. We're encouraging that.
We think, we're guessing, that's what
We certainly are worried.
people from the audience who have called in have said that. We don't know for sure, but it certainly looks that way. John?
Maybe this is under the category of anal retentive, but in that one handout we have, which gives the suggested word for the attestation as to the
yeah.
origin.
yep.
Okay, that's number one. Let's finish up with the fee. thing.
Okay, okay,
Let's finish up with the fee thing.
okay.
So in terms of the fee, which means Judy putting together a letter stating what we want, the rationale for it, and asking them to put it on the agenda, it doesn't seem like there would be any reason, I mean, my question would be, why haven't we done this before? The question isn't, should we do this? Why haven't we done it
Judy
before?
better check with Farley and make sure you're on the
Yes.
same page.
So then Judy will make a letter, bring it back, and we'll look at that. Does that sound good? Yep. Okay, and then, the third thing is the application attestation section, and Judy has put together at the bottom of it, there's this, a checkoff box, and that's what you were asking about, John.
Yes. The end of that sentence, the end of that short paragraph, says all waste, commercial, or residential, transported to and deposited at the facility was collected and/or generated. Collected and/or generated within the boundaries of Chatham.
I think,
Does this allow waste to be generated outside of Chatham but collected in Chatham to come in?
I
Example.
think I took that wording right from the regulation, so.
And/or generated within, so
So I'm thinking, say there's a demolition
make
being
that-
done in Harwich, but it's close to the Chatham boundary. Could they demo it and then drop it in a dumpster in Chatham and then have I mean,
I mean, that would be.
no, but the intent of this is no, they couldn't do it. That's my reading.
Yeah, I mean, I can take that out.
But I sent out my little thing here. My thinking, this is just me, on the application form is that we want to make it emphasize the point that it's just Chatham waste, which we haven't done before. So to me, it's an attestation section, multiple checkoffs. Judy's paragraph covers things, but I think it's like 3 different things in there. And it's the last sentence when you get into the Chatham business. I would break that up, as I did on my thing, into maybe 3 different checkoffs. And then I would also ask them to say they're not mixing waste, because I can see a hauler running through
Exclusively,
Brewster,
exclusively
coming over to
Chatham
Chatham, and
waste.
then picking up Chatham and think, well, it's all Chatham, I'm just gonna dump it there.
Well, that's, I think, where the collected and/or generated comes from.
But my point is that in order to, part of emphasizing it and making it clear so that later on no one can say, well, I didn't really understand, you break that paragraph into multiple checkoffs and make them read each thing and check off each one and then add the mix thing in there. That's what I think, but that's just me.
Maybe collected and generated within the boundaries, not or.
And, yeah,
Make it to be collected
because-
and generated within the
Because
boundaries.
the way this paragraph is written now would allow a contractor to take material from Chatham to Harwich, put it in the dumpster in Harwich.
Or
pick it
vice
up in
versa.
Harwich and bring it to the Chatham transfer station.
Right.
Because it was generated in Chatham.
Right.
But it was collected in Harwich. But that might also have other stuff in that dumpster. There's no reason to.
so take out the or,
But
just
Judy,
and.
is there any reason not to break that paragraph into 3 separate?
Take out the or.
Just-
I can
just for
do that,
clarity.
yeah, I can do
And
that.
also, I know it's redundant, but mixed. Just say, I'm not mixing things from different towns, because you can
Exclusively.
guess that they probably with their everyday work that they do that.
Solely.
I affirm that all Chatham
solely-
waste
And then
is
just,
not
you know,
mixed
that-
with waste from other towns.
And then again, this is the application, so Judy can do this on her own, but Sheila wants to generate something for us to look at. And when you get into penalties, it gets complicated, but we can, again, make that sentence that noncompliance will be reviewed by the Board of Health and dealt with at our discretion, which gives us kind of the threat and the opportunity to
Right.
whatever.
We don't want the truck driver filling out this form. We need to somewhere say
this would
it
be the
needs to be
owner.
the man, well, it doesn't say that.
Yeah.
This is,
I think
this
you want the
form,
Right, well,
It
who
needs to
applies
be
for
the
it?
This
owner
form-
or the manager.
Well, who's
Oh, I
who's
disagree.
applying?
out this
truck drivers don't fill this
Who's
out.
applying for it
This
now?
is filled out by the haulers, the owners of the company or their administrative staff, or,
The guy that pulls up on the
No,
truck.
no, he's gonna
no,
fill out
this
all
is the
cars for
application.
that load.
This is
but
the this is the yearly application for the
The
hauler's
application,
permit.
absolutely, but I'm saying on a day-to-day basis,
that's
when
the
a
truck
Millie
driver.
truck pulls in on a May 5th with a load, and he's putting the truck on the scale, he should sign a clipboard
Okay,
that
Yeah, we-
attests to the fact.
That's a different section.
we already, yeah, we
That's the
discussed that.
regulation, we have to
That's
change the
that's your
regulation.
item number 3, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
Change fees.
and I think this would be like an attestation section. It's the
Okay.
owner of the hauler. How-
I can't do
they-
this
they-
until
How many
the
commercial
fall,
haulers
really.
apply for privileges in Chatham? Diane, do you know?
I'm sorry.
How many haulers do we have?
3, I thought.
No, there's more than that,
No,
there's
we
like
have out of
5.
We have like, yeah, there's probably 5 or 6.
Yeah, 5 or 6.
Not everybody I mean, there's only 2 probably
Brian-
in town, but the other ones
We
are out
have
of town.
Millie, we have Nauset, we have
Nickerson.
Nickerson,
Did you say Ryan, Brian?
Brian
Barrows.
Barrows. I always wanted to
So we
say
have, yeah. And that application is filled out in December, so we have time to get this squared up for the next round.
The haulers are not gonna like us requiring them to certify every load is exclusively from Chatham. They're not gonna like it.
I
because-
suspect, I haven't researched it, but I suspect that other towns are much stricter and more careful than we are in regards to
think so?
that issue. So it's not gonna be something new to them.
the truck
Yeah, and
may
they'll
not
do
be
whatever
filled.
they have to
It
do.
actually is vaguely already referred to, it just hasn't been emphasized.
Yeah, they'll
Really.
do whatever they have to do.
And actually, the trash lady, when she was here, she said that there are experts, Carrie, there are experts you can hire who will come and examine garbage being dumped and make a professional determination, expert determination of where that trash came
You
from.
Look for envelopes. You look
She,
for,
I'm not
you
recommending
know,
we do that here in Chatham, but I'm just telling you, that's
can
where,
do that.
where their whole issue is.
You spot check loads on the floor and you'll know
And
it.
you can do that for all kinds of things, like whether they're getting
Okay,
the cardboard when they
Yes.
shouldn't be, and, yeah, so.
All right, so other.
Okay,
what-
so
what
I
happened-
have my,
And then Judy will do stuff and come back with it, and we can review it again.
Okay.
So, that's good. Now,
I'm gonna,
is there any,
first I'm gonna meet with Rob and
Yes.
Greg and
We
go
may
over
need to
this
have him
stuff.
come here and talk
I
to us.
I will also draft a letter to the select board about the fees. And then
you want to look at that, so it's,
those two things are the major things. And when I talk to Rob, I'll talk to him about the transfer station sign off.
see what he's doing right now, actually.
Yeah, and,
And here's another question I have.
Yeah.
If we go this way, are we, I think what we're doing is pretty reasonable and straightforward, but do we need to have an opportunity for a commercial hall to come in and present their side of the thing to us before we make a decision? Is that something we should do, or, I think it's up to us and it's pretty straightforward. It's
Well,
not, we're not really,
if I think that, you mean about the fees, or?
well, yeah, the whole, well, the fees mainly.
And they're gonna show up for any public hearing
Yeah.
if they're concerned.
The fees will be, that'll be the select board.
Yeah,
That's the select board thing, okay. And
All
they
right.
may want to do that. Okay, other comments, or, so Judy can go do the next step? I think if we do those three things, I think it'll go, I think you'll get, 95% compliance. Because I think they'll really be going out of their way to not comply. That's what I think. Now, is there any input from the public or online, or any comments? Because we had some last time, I think, and we had the lady from the Chatham Recyclables,
yes, Paulette.
Paulette.
I see no.
There's nobody
let me
online.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
There's nobody online.
all right. So anything else we need to thoughts we have for Judy or Diane? Okay. All right, so that's a lot,
All right.
but I
that's a lot.
think we can do something that will really help.
Okay,
Okay, all right, so, okay, now,
minutes.
public comments, future agenda items request. Anyone, well, we have other things that we've talked about. Airport lead,
Can't get to them yet.
Can I just bring,
Mill Hill, we don't have an update, we'll try to have it next time. What other issues are we working on?
The airport, Mill Hill, we
think those are the
talked
big
about, the IA systems.
Oh, the IA system technology, and that's a whole big topic that we ought to know more about it, frankly, we really ought
yes,
to.
yes.
Airport lead, maybe we need to, we don't want it to get into a discussion here, but they were here, it was maybe a year ago now.
It was just about a year ago.
One thing they
A little more
promised
than
was
a
they would
year.
put up lead warning signs at the airport, which I believe are not up, but we could review all that, so that'll be another. Okay, other public comments, future agenda item requests.
Nope.
I'm just introducing something completely brand new. I don't have a strong feeling, but I have enough of a feeling that I want to at least bring it out and see what other board members think. And that is leaf blowers.
I was waiting for.
I
you
don't know
guys
if
to bring that
anybody
up.
else is bothered by hours and hours of leaf blowing noise in their community.
Are there other towns that have addressed
Yes,
it?
there are other towns that have addressed it, and there is technology
Have
out
they-
there.
Have they addressed it through the Board of Health, or?
Is it in our?
I'm not sure,
through-
but I've got a neighbor who brings it up to me every time he sees me, and he rattled off 3 or 4 names of towns in Massachusetts that have taken action to reduce the decibels and the air quality by requiring
Board of Health, yeah.
requiring contractors to, over time, replace their gasoline-powered blowers with battery-powered blowers and that have muffling, in other words, muffles, in other words, you don't have the decibels, and you don't have the air pollutant discharges from a gasoline-powered unit. And I find that appealing. I have no idea what everybody else thinks. I have no
Well, I
idea.
think that's a good agenda item, but we would need to know if it's in our jurisdiction, but I know that the attorney always tells us, I think a quality of life in the neighborhood is a Board of Health issue. We have broad authority, but we could check our
I
authority.
know some other towns are
and
doing
then
it,
a
so,
precedent from some other towns, especially
Yeah.
on the Cape.
yep.
I mean, when,
And put it on the agenda to talk about it, because
I
I
mean,
think.
when my
we would-
next door neighbors, people come, they're there for 3 hours
If you
with
ma- if you
multiple things
Make a
blowing.
change and you put a deadline way down there so people have time to adjust, it's not unfair. Ron?
First off, I would imagine it is in our jurisdiction, if
Yeah.
no other reason than the emissions.
Right.
That's a health issue.
I would think so.
The second, I would think a simple internet search would reveal whether other cities in Massachusetts have taken similar action, and then that would be our justification. I think it's a good.
And I think there is.
Nantucket is doing
I
it
think
right
there was
now,
one
I
that was just in
believe.
the news.
Really?
Yeah.
And the other thing we could do, quite frankly, is we could find a way to poll, to see what do our residents think? You know, there are ways to gauge public sentiment on a question like this, using public health students or using high school students who want to do, there's various polling, sampling systems where you can randomly ask 500 residents in various, venues, like at the entrance to the village market,
I
We
think the
can't,
Board of Health has to have a health reason for doing it, not a public opinion reason.
Arlington.
And this is the kind of thing that often comes onto onto the town meeting. Somebody puts a proposal at town meeting, they have a town
Vote.
regulation
Yes.
to prohibit these things, rather than the Board of Health stepping in and saying, we find it harmful to the hearing of the people in
Right.
Chatham.
Right.
That somebody has
I'm sure there's various ways.
because
to
these are approved devices that are, that approved for sale.
They could be
You know, we
bylaws.
can get into the same kind of
Bylaws,
issues
too.
we get with
well, I think,
pesticides and herbicides. And, anybody can have a petition and take it to the town meeting.
right, there's,
I mean, the guy that does my next door, it's Del Mar, and like 6 people show up and they're there for 4 hours with an extraordinarily loud lawnmower and 2 or 3 blowers, and there's no leaves around. They're basically blowing mulch and dirt and
right.
grass.
But I'd say, there's more than one way to accomplish something.
Yes.
By law or regulation. What we learned from short-term rental regulation was if you do it by regulation, the process is a little more streamlined, you can adjust it, and it works better, and you're likely to get something done. So I think the first thing would be for Judy to find out if it's in our jurisdiction, which it probably is under quality of life, and then put it on the agenda and see if other towns have done it, and kind of go from there.
Just,
But I don't think we should have a whole discussion of it now, we need to.
no, I agree, but
But
maybe,
maybe
Judy
there'll
could
be lots of
round up
people who
some
say it's
basic
too much
fundamental
regulation,
facts.
but
Yeah.
a lot of people will agree.
One thing, the batteries now are so much more powerful than they used to be.
Sure.
You see them advertised on television all the time, how powerful they are.
Okay, so, but I think it's a good discussion, I mean, and then we can see whatever. Okay, so we'll do that. Okay, and then we have one set of minutes, I think they're the April 7th minutes, is that right?
Yes.
Anybody have a correction or addition to those minutes? And if not, someone can make it
I'll make a motion, we approve the draft minutes for April 7th.
a second?
I'll second them.
All right, and we can take a voice vote, I think. All in favor of approving the minutes of April 7th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's done. And then, did we make a decision about the next meeting?
We're gonna,
Cancel it?
we have a meeting scheduled for May 5th, which is next Monday, but there's nothing on the agenda. I won't have enough time to put stuff together that we discussed tonight, so we figured, and then the 19th is the one after that, so we figured we
We'll
would cancel next week.
Cancel next Monday's meeting.
And then
Because of the holiday, we have them back to back, so.
Then, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move?
And a second?
Second.
Yeah, and all in favor, voice vote, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, hearing none, we are adjourned.